Hi everyone, thanks very much for joining us today. My name's Keira
Hi, my name's Elyse.
Hi, I'm Ellen.
and we're provisional psychologists at Monash University. So today we're going to be having a chat about the question that was submitted: does prolonged stress weaken the immune system? So I guess I'll just kick things off with an idea that I've been looking into, or it's some known research, I guess, a known idea, but one that I find very interesting on this topic, which is about the fight or flight response that we have. So you might have heard of it, but the fight flight response is basically a physiological reaction that helps us react to a perceived threat or when we're under attack. So this was a very helpful, obviously, thousands of years ago where we would have been, chased down by animals, but it's not as useful, I suppose, in modern day society. So what happens with the fight-flight response is that cortisol and adrenaline are released so that we have increased energy to areas that we need it, like our muscles, blood flow around our body, and essentially the energy drawn away from less important things at the time, like digestion and immunity. Once the threat is passed, this reaction will pass as well. So it's there to help us in the short term, but I guess in today's world with things like bills, when we're in traffic jams, when we have, maybe issues with family, this kind of stress is heightened and this fight-flight response is kind of on much more frequently than it needs to be. And over time, this can be very wearing on our physical health and our immunity. So that's why it's really important that we look at some ways of reducing our stress.
I think for me, I'm definitely feeling that fight or flight response inside myself. And in psychology, we can use this tool. So when we think about situations, we often think about the level of perceived, of control that we have over something. And in psychology, we use a tool called the circle of control. So pretty much what that is it's two circles, and you reflect on your situation and you can think about what are the things that I have control over. So a lot of the times we can think about how we react to a situation, or there might be some things around a situation that we can control. And then what are the things we can't control? Like you were saying, at the moment, there's so many things that we can't control with what's happening. And I think it's important that we still are able to identify things that we can control, because that's how we can begin to start working to alleviate some of the stress. So I think that's helpful if we can reflect on what it is that we have control on and start working on those things to alleviate some stress.
I think that kind of ties into the research that I found. It was about there being two different types of stress. So acute stress is based on more short-term stressful experiences. I guess they could be somewhat controllable, whereas there's chronic stress, whereas that's long-term stressful experiences that don't have a clear end point. And when you're constantly under that stress, it can make you exhausted, and it just uses up more of your body's energy. And I think that's where it ties into that flight or flight mode that you mentioned before, Keira, because it just impacts your immune system always being on edge. And the research also went into about our behavioral reactions to stress and how that can also impact our immune system. So like if we're drinking more alcohol or having more disrupted sleep and not exercising, all of it at the end of the day will add up. And it really emphasizes the need to have a good self-care routine. So I guess that's, we need to have some good strategies in place to address the stresses that are going on. So what do you guys do? What strategies do you put in place when you're feeling stressed?
Yeah, I think sleep is a big one. Even if we, aim to get our 7 or 8 hours sleep, I think it's really important as well to wind down before we go to bed, because we're all probably familiar with that feeling of going to bed, but our mind is racing, or our muscles are tense, or our heart is racing. So it's important as well to find some strategies to kind of switch off from the day so that you have a more restful night's sleep and you don't wake up during the night.
I think definitely I resonate with that. And I found meditating really helps. So when I lay down at night, sometimes I feel like all of these thoughts flood in, and I know this is common for a lot of people. And for me, I find in particular the Headspace app is what I use to wind down, and it goes through a lot of, I guess, relaxation exercises such as body scans, and that's really helpful. I'm sure there's other apps out there or other ways to access meditation. How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I use the Calm app. That's another one. But yeah, I guess to wind down before bed is, I try to put my screens away, like my phone and my laptop, and put them away for half an hour before I go to sleep, and just have some tea or do something away from a screen.
Yeah, I have to agree. I tend to use the body scans that are just on Spotify. They're for free, and there's so many out there. You can just pick whichever ones best suit what's going on in that present moment. But another thing that I found when I'm stressed is that I tend to eat more junk food, um, which I guess ties back into the research where it said that, when you're stressed, you use more energy, so you should be consuming more healthy foods. But when you're stressed, you tend to crave foods that, are high in fat and sugar, and you can even tend to skip or forget to have a meal, which then results in nutrient depletion, which then impacts your cortisol hormones, which goes back again to that fight or flight response. So it all seems to be going back.
I guess in practical terms, that resonates for me is I find myself craving like carbohydrates, so bread and like jam and sweet things like that. And what I've kind of done to curb that, because I know that doesn't make me feel good in the long term, is I've been drinking more tea. So being at home and sitting at my office a bit more, I'll now have a cup of tea, and that kind of stops me from going to and from the fridge. So that could be a helpful strategy that you might be able to use.
I'm not naturally a tea drinker, but I've been trying to get onto it as well, because I naturally want coffee, but I have to just limit myself to one a day, because otherwise I don't sleep well either. So I've been trying to drink more tea too lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, I found as well a major thing that really helps reduce my level of stress is exercise. So in the morning, and this is known for a lot of people. So exercise, I guess, reduces the level of stress hormones in your body, and releases endorphins, which make you feel good, and they actually give you more energy. So exercise is kind of counterintuitive like that. You're burning energy, but you're actually gaining energy back. So something that I found, is to keep active. And I've been doing that with friends and family online. And I know that there's Monash Active have so many online workouts at the moment. They're doing an amazing job. So there's still ways of kind of keeping active at the moment. How are you guys trying to keep active?
I think, Ellen, you and I both walk a lot, don't we? I think you said that you walk a lot too.
Definitely. As soon as the sun shines out, because we don't really get it here often, I'm walking around the lake with my dog, just taking it all in.
Yeah. I think, Elyse, that's quite cool that you found a way to do those exercises with friends and family. And I think you said that you do that with your cousins, is it, online?
Yeah, so we kind of team up together and we pick a time in the morning. So it kind of helps with routine as well, which is a big one. So getting up at 7 a.m. and we work out together, and it's just nice to have that social connection as well. I think in itself that feels good.
Yeah, it's definitely harder at the moment maintaining those social connections the way we normally would in person, but it's still really important to find ways to keep connected, because we know that people who have good social connections do have, better health overall as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've given lots of strategies, and I guess what's most important, what I'm kind of gauging, is to get back to the basics. So eating healthy, exercising, practicing mindfulness, getting enough sleep. Sounds like what we need to do. And sometimes it's so simple, but it's nice to just be reminded.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to remember that there's so many resources online, like the Monash Active, that you can always go back to for a good reference. Even talking to a friend or family, like what you've been doing, Elyse, and just releasing all that stress through conversation, or even talking to your GP. They can do so much for us, and we tend to forget quite easily what they can do. So it's important to remember that they're there.
Sure.
Well, I think that wraps up our conversation for tonight. Thanks, ladies, for coming, and thank you guys at home for watching. It's been great having you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.